The Georgia sun was merciless. It hung above Barren Parish like an open furnace, baking the red clay roads until they cracked and curled like scorched paper. Heat shimmered across the landscape, warping the air and muffling the distant buzz of cicadas that clung to the brittle trees. And in the middle of a forgotten stretch of Old Creek Road, a black pickup truck idled lifeless in the dust. Isaiah Freeman stood beside it, tall and composed despite the heat. He wore a tailored navy suit, the kind that whispered power, crisp lines, Italian wool, a white pocket square folded with geometric precision. Sweat clung to the nape of his neck, beading beneath his close-cropped hair. He checked his watch, 12:43 p.m. No cell signal. No shade, just him, the truck, and the silence of a place that hadn't seen a soul in hours. He wasn't worried. A tow was en route, called in before the bars vanished, and he'd weathered worse than a breakdown. Isaiah Freeman was, after all, the governor of Georgia. The first black man to ever hold that office. But titles didn't carry weight out here. A low roar broke the stillness. Dust kicked up on the horizon. A squad car, a Dodge Charger, black and white, crest of Barren Parish Sheriff's Office stamped on the side, barreled down the road. Isaiah straightened slightly. The cruiser skidded to a stop, gravel spitting in every direction. The door flew open before the engine had fully settled. Out stepped a man, thin, sinewy, with a sharp face and a buzz cut so tight it left his scalp pink. His badge flashed as he moved, gun already drawn. "Hands up!" he barked. "Right now!" Isaiah blinked, stunned. "Excuse me?" I said, "Hands up. Step away from the vehicle." The weapon, a Glock, was trained on his chest. Isaiah's hands rose slowly, instinctively, palms out. "Officer, there's been a mistake." "Shut it!" The officer's nameplate read Vaughn, spat into the dirt. "You think I don't know a car thief when I see one?" Isaiah's eyes narrowed. His voice stayed even. "This is my truck. No chance." Vaughn edged closer, circling like a predator, keeping the gun locked on target. "People like you don't drive trucks like this unless they're boosting them." "Let me guess, you found the keys." "I am not a thief." "Oh yeah? Got ID?" "In my wallet, front jacket pocket." Vaughn didn't reach for it. Instead, he stepped in and shoved Isaiah hard against the truck. The metal seared against Isaiah's back, sun-heated and rusted. Vaughn's knee drove into the back of his thigh. A moment later, Isaiah felt the cold bite of handcuffs. "Hey!" he grunted. "This is unnecessary." "You don't tell me what's necessary," Vaughn growled. "You think a suit's gonna save your ass?" Isaiah was 6'3", built like a linebacker. But at that moment, he felt pinned not just by the weight of Vaughn's knee, but also by the crushing familiarity with this script. His heart thudded, not from fear, but fury. Not again, not after everything. "Officer Vaughn," he said through clenched teeth, "you are detaining the sitting governor of this state." Vaughn barked a laugh. "Governor? That's the best one yet." He spun Isaiah around, cuffed hands scraping against the truck's door. "Hell, you gonna tell me you're the president next?" "I suggest you check my identification." "I'll check it when I'm damn good and ready." Vaughn yanked the wallet from Isaiah's pocket, flipped it open, and paused. The seal of the state of Georgia gleamed beneath his thumb. The name, the photo, the bold black letters. Vaughn stared. For half a second, something like recognition flickered, then his lip curled. Fake. He tossed the wallet onto the dirt. Ground his boot into it. Isaiah's voice dropped, dangerous calm. "You're making a serious mistake. The only mistake here," Vaughn snapped, "was thinking I wouldn't see through your bullshit. You people always have a story. Always think the rules don't apply." Isaiah didn't respond. He couldn't, not without unleashing the storm in his chest. So he stood there, cuffed, sweating, eyes locked on the man who now circled him with theatrical contempt. Vaughn clicked his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 7. I've got a suspect detained. Suspected grand theft auto. Send backup to Old Creek Road." Isaiah closed his eyes. This wasn't just incompetence. It was a theater, and he was the target. The prize. Backup. Cameras. Headlines. He had to think. "Listen," he said, softer now, calculating. "You don't want to do this. I'm not resisting. I'm offering you a chance to fix this before it gets worse." But Vaughn had already walked away, gun lowered, triumphant swagger in every step. Isaiah tested the cuffs. Too tight. Blood was already beginning to smear the steel. He bit down against the pain. He thought of his staff, his wife, his daughter, Alana, who would be waiting at home. He thought of the press, of what this would look like if he stayed silent. And still, he didn't shout. Didn't rage. He waited. A storm was coming. He'd seen it before, but never like this. The sirens came slowly, then fast. Not like cavalry, but like scavengers, drawn by the scent of blood, of opportunity. First one squad car, then two, then a third. The dry dirt road filled with dust and boots and smirking faces, all cut from the same cloth. No one questioned Vaughn. No one looked at Isaiah's ID. They didn't need to. A black man in cuffs beside a truck? Case closed before the facts began. They treated Vaughn like a hero. They treated Isaiah like a trophy. "Hot wire?" one officer asked, chuckling. "Resisted pretty hard," Vaughn said, gesturing at the still bleeding cut on his own knuckle. "Tried to go for my weapon." Isaiah didn't speak. He wouldn't give them the image of a black man shouting in protest. Not yet. His silence was a blade. They shoved him into the back seat of the cruiser like he was cargo. The trip to the station was a short drive into a longer nightmare. Barron Parish Sheriff's Office stood like a bunker, low, gray, and sun-scorched. A chain-link fence surrounded the back. As they pulled in, Isaiah caught his reflection in the window, dirt on his cheek, blood near his collar. A smudge on his lapel where Vaughn had slammed him into the truck. He looked like a suspect. Inside, the air smelled like sweat and Clorox. A flickering bulb stuttered overhead as he was dragged into the booking. Sergeant Polk sat behind a chipped desk, barely glancing up from his paperwork. "Name," he muttered. "Isaiah Freeman, Governor of Georgia." A beat of silence. Then Vaughn laughed, loud, harsh, theatrical. "He's still on that bit." Polk finally looked up. His eyes were green and glassy. "Governor, huh? You got a press secretary? Secret Service? My wallet's on the floor of Old Creek Road. Check it. My face is on every billboard south of Atlanta." Polk rolled his eyes. "Let me guess. Next you'll tell me you cured cancer." Vaughn stepped in. "Resisting arrest. Assaulting an officer. Grand theft auto." Isaiah turned toward him. "You assaulted me." "You went for my gun," Vaughn lied smoothly. "Tried to run. Took 3 of us to subdue him." "None of that is true." Polk didn't flinch. "Put it in the report. We'll let the judge sort it out." The next hour was procedural humiliation. Rough hands. Barked orders. No eye contact. They forced Isaiah to spread his fingers on an ink pad, grinding each print down until his skin tore. A young officer approached. Tall, black, late 20s. His badge read, Bryant. "Wait a second." He paused, eyes scanning Isaiah's face. "Are you, sir, Governor Freeman?" Isaiah's voice dropped. Yes, you recognize me? I saw you speak at Morehouse. I was there with my fiancée. You said, "There is no freedom without the fight for it." I remember. Then help me, Isaiah said. You know this is wrong. Bryant turned to Polk. We need to verify this. If he is who he says, back off, rookie, Vaughn cut in. His hand landed on Bryant's shoulder tight. Bryant didn't budge. I'm not trying to start anything, but if that ID checks out, we're going to be on the wrong side of history. Vaughn's expression hardened. It happened fast. A backhand across Bryant's face, then a shove into the wall, then fists. Vaughn pounded him once, twice, until Bryant crumpled. Isaiah lunged forward. Stop! A deputy grabbed him. Wrenched his arm back. Polk stood slowly. Enough, but it was performative. No one moved to check Bryant's pulse. Vaughn stood over him, panting. Anyone else want to play hero? Isaiah looked down at Bryant's body. Blood pooled beneath his cheek. His chest rose, barely. This is a crime, Isaiah said. No, Vaughn sneered. This is the system. They dragged Isaiah through a back hallway. One boot kicked his foot to trip him. He stumbled but didn't fall. The holding cell stank of mildew and hopelessness. The cot was bent. The walls stained. A rusted toilet hissed quietly in the corner. You'll get your day in court, Polk said as he locked the door. Until then, sit tight. The courtroom the next morning was a theater of decay. Wood-paneled walls yellowed with age. The seal of the state of Georgia hung crooked behind the bench. Judge Harlan Cruz presided like a relic carved from bone. Gaunt, liver-spotted hands. Eyes that flicked between boredom and contempt. Isaiah stood in a chain-linked belt and shackles, his suit now wrinkled and stained. His wrists are raw. Cruz didn't look up. Name: I am Isaiah Freeman, the elected governor of... Enough, Cruz snapped. You are here under charges of impersonating a government official, resisting arrest, assaulting an officer, and theft of a vehicle. Isaiah's public defender, a man named Ellis, thin, nervous, eyes darting, whispered, Sir, I think it's best we don't challenge the court until we've... Isaiah stepped forward, voice steady. Your Honor, I demand that you verify my identity. You are holding the governor of Georgia on false charges. Cruz finally looked up. His smile was thin, sharp as wire. And I demand you remember your place. You speak when spoken to. You sit when told. You do not issue demands in my court. Isaiah didn't blink. I will not be silent while this court launders lies. Cruz pounded the gavel once. Bail denied. Risk of further deception. Return him to holding. Ellis mumbled an objection that evaporated in the stale air. Two deputies stepped forward. Isaiah turned once and looked at the few reporters in the gallery. None of them moved. One scribbled into a notepad without lifting her eyes. The gavel slammed again. They dragged him out. Back in the cell, Isaiah sat on the edge of the cot, breathing through the burn in his wrists. Somewhere in the station he imagined Officer Bryant lying still. Somewhere in the system, a memo was already being written to discredit him. To erase the footage, to write a new version of this day. But he wasn't done. This wasn't just survival. This was documentation, a war. He leaned forward, pressing his cuffed hands together like a prayer, and whispered, Remember this. They won't bury me quietly. The next morning, the courtroom was quieter. The kind of quiet that came before something ruptured. Isaiah sat shackled again, wrists swollen and bruised. His face was pale with resolve, but inside, he was calculating. Cruz was going to bury him. His defender was a ghost, but something felt different. That's when the doors flew open. They slammed against the walls with a clatter. Every head in the room turned. A woman strode in. Latina, early 40s, fire in her eyes. Black blazer, messy ponytail, press badge flapping from her hip. Clara Nunez, Independent Media, she announced, voice ringing through the silence. I have evidence that this man is Governor Isaiah Freeman and that this court is party to a gross miscarriage of justice. Remove her, Judge Cruz bellowed, slamming his gavel. A bailiff moved toward her. Clara held up her phone. On it played a video. Isaiah behind a podium, flanked by the Georgia state flag. His inauguration speech, his voice, his face. I have photos, I have transcripts, I have live statements from his chief of staff and 3 members of his cabinet who haven't been able to reach him in 24 hours. A low murmur rippled through the courtroom. Cruz leaned forward. Turn that off, bailiff, confiscate it. Try it, Clara snapped. It's already uploaded. Isaiah stared at her, stunned. A flicker of something stirred in his chest. Not quite hope, something harder. Something more dangerous. Cruz's face was beet red. New charges, he growled. Add impersonating a public official and obstructing court proceedings. What? Clara shouted. You just saw the proof. Silence. Isaiah stepped forward, chains clinking. Your Honor, this court just received definitive evidence that I am who I say I am. You're ignoring it. Cruz pounded the gavel. Enough. No more outbursts. Why? Clara asked. Because the lie's too deep to undo? Cruz stood. Bail is denied. Defendant to be returned to custody pending full investigation. On what grounds? Isaiah asked, his voice rising, still measured. You've been presented irrefutable evidence. Video, corroboration, testimony. Are you saying none of that matters? Cruz leaned on his bench like a man protecting a crumbling wall. I don't answer to media theatrics. This is my courtroom, Mr. Freeman, or whoever you claim to be. Clara stepped closer. This isn't just obstruction. This is targeted political silencing. If this court refuses to recognize the identity of a sitting governor, you're no longer upholding the law. You're actively erasing it. Enough, Cruz thundered. Remove her from the chamber. Bailiffs grabbed Clara by the arms. She didn't resist. Her voice rang out above the scuffle. This is already live streaming to over 50,000 viewers. You think you can hide this? You think you can bury the governor of Georgia? Good luck. One of the bailiffs hesitated, but Cruz gestured wildly, and they dragged her out. Isaiah watched her go, the weight in his chest shifting from surprise to steel. They'd struck a nerve. Not enough to win, but enough to expose the rot. He looked around. Faces in the courtroom averted their eyes. Judges' clerks, court reporters, 1 or 2 journalists in the back row with trembling fingers over keyboards. The silence was deafening. Isaiah's attorney, Ellis, finally found his voice. Your Honor, I think we have grounds to pause proceedings. Denied, Cruz snapped. We are not turning this into a media circus. If you continue down this path, Mr. Ellis, I'll hold you in contempt. Isaiah leaned into the microphone before him. His voice was calm, resolute. This court is already in contempt of truth, of due process, and of the oath you swore to uphold. Cruz's face twitched. Not rage, not fear. Something closer to panic disguised as fury. This hearing is adjourned, Cruz barked. Return the defendant to holding. Next appearance to be scheduled after review. But he had already lost control. Outside, the crowd had grown. Dozens stood on courthouse steps, phones in hand. Signs were appearing. Where is Governor Freeman? Justice for Isaiah. The murmurs of protest were taking shape. Someone had posted the video Clara had shared. It had been reshared thousands of times in under an hour. By the time Isaiah was loaded into the transport van, escorted by 4 officers with stone-cold faces, he could feel the shift in the air. Something had cracked, but cracks were dangerous. They made things unstable. In the back of the van, Isaiah sat alone on the bench seat, his hands cuffed to the wall behind him. The engine rumbled. The lights buzzed. He thought of Clara, of her voice. The moment she had burst into that courtroom like lightning, cutting through the shadow. He thought of Vaughn, of Polk, of Cruz, and of the machine that had quietly enabled each of them. He wasn't naive. He'd been underestimated before. He'd seen racism dressed in velvet and in steel-toed boots. But this was different. This was coordinated, intentional, structural. This wasn't just about power, it was about preservation. His office didn't threaten the system. It was threatened by his existence, a black governor, a symbol that the tower could be climbed, and worse, that it could be rebuilt. That terrified them. He shifted his weight against the cuffs, letting the sting remind him he was still breathing, still fighting. A voice crackled from the front of the van. "Freeman, you've made a lot of noise today. Don't think it won't come with consequences." Isaiah didn't reply. The silence was his reply. The van turned down a side road. Bumpy. Isolated, not the way back to county jail. His pulse quickened. When the van finally stopped, it wasn't at the usual sally port. It was a loading bay. Rear of the courthouse. No cameras. 2 deputies opened the doors. No words. They led him through a side entrance, down a hall with no windows, then into a room. A gray, silent room. A single table, no cameras, no mics. Polk stood there, Vaughn beside him. "Thought we'd have a word, Governor," Polk said, voice slick with mockery. Vaughn cracked his knuckles. "Just a friendly check-in. You've been busy." Isaiah stared at them. Then at the ceiling. No red recording light, no sign of life outside. Polk stepped closer. "See, your little journalist friend caused a stir. That's fine. That's manageable. But you don't know when to stay down." Isaiah met his gaze. "If you're going to threaten me, do it. I've heard worse from cowards with guns." Vaughn lunged, grabbed Isaiah by the collar, and slammed him against the table. "You still don't get it." "You're not in charge. You never were." Isaiah didn't flinch. "You hit a cop in your own station. You beat a black officer in front of witnesses. You're not scared of me. You're scared of what happens when the world sees you." Polk pulled Vaughn back. "Not yet. Let him rot a little longer." They left him there, cuffed to the table, bruised but not broken. Because Isaiah Freeman had finally seen the full size of the enemy. And it was afraid. It just didn't know how to admit it. The prison gates closed behind Isaiah Freeman with a deafening clang, as if the world were sealing its mouth shut. Concrete walls stretched tall into the gray sky, topped with razor wire that shimmered like jagged teeth in the morning haze. The Redwater Correctional Facility was not just a place, it was a message. You are not welcome here, and yet here you will stay. They walked him through with purpose. No mugshots, no fingerprints, just a silent acknowledgement that they all knew who he was and what it meant to have him in chains. Every correctional officer he passed smirked or averted their eyes, except one. Vaughn. Somehow assigned, or perhaps self-appointed, as his escort through processing, Vaughn whispered, "Welcome home, Governor." "Hope you like the decor." Isaiah didn't flinch, but his fists clenched slightly inside the cuffs. The general population was a cage within a cage. Inmates swarmed the yard like restless wolves. Some stared, others whispered. Isaiah walked through them like a man in a lion's den, cuffed, guarded, unprotected. And that was the plan. They put him in a shared cell. A narrow concrete box with 3 men already inside, thick-necked, tattooed, 2 of them lifting weights, while the third carved something into the metal bed frame with a sharpened toothbrush handle. It only took an hour. At lunchtime, a guard called him out to retrieve his tray. On the way back, someone stuck a foot out. Isaiah tripped. The tray crashed. Food everywhere. The room went quiet. "You think you're better than us?" one inmate growled. Isaiah stood slowly. "I don't think anything," he said. "Just trying to eat." Another stepped in. "You don't belong in here with us. You belong under us." The first punch hit his ribs. The second split his lip. Then came the boots. They beat him in rhythm, grunting, until the guards dragged them off, not with urgency, but like pulling dogs off a chew toy. Isaiah lay on the floor, gasping, tasting blood and metal. One guard knelt beside him, grinning. "Warden says solitary for your own protection." They dragged him away. Solitary confinement. No windows, just a light that never turned off, and a toilet that never stopped running. The mattress was thin, the walls thick with grime. Isaiah lay curled in a corner for hours, then sat upright, breathing carefully, cataloging every pain. His body burned, but his mind sharpened. He stared at the wall, then, slowly, used the edge of his steel sink to scratch words into the paint, just above floor level. Each stroke is precise. Each word is deliberate. Isaiah Freeman, Governor, help me. Frame up, Redwater Prison. He carved until his fingers bled. Then he slumped against the wall, spent. Days blurred. He didn't know when she came. The door opened with a groan. A mop swished across the floor, slow, methodical. Isaiah cracked one eye open. A woman, older, with a wiry frame and gray curls tucked under a faded cap, pushed the bucket in, humming. She paused at the wall, stared, then knelt, pretended to scrub. She whispered, "Jesus, Isaiah?" He sat up. "Who are you?" The mop stopped. Her voice cracked. "My name is Grace. I'm your mother." The silence was crushing. Isaiah stared. "My mother's dead." "No," she said. "I left you. I was 17. Poor. Alone. Your father disappeared. I gave you to my sister. She raised you in Atlanta. I watched from a distance. I saw what you became." He didn't speak. "I cleaned this place to survive. They let me in because I don't talk. But I saw your name on the sheet. I had to see." Her eyes brimmed with tears. "I'm sorry, Isaiah, for everything." He looked away. Then back. "Can you get a message out?" "Yes." He pointed to the scratched words. "Clara Nunez. Journalist, independent media. Tell her what you saw." "Tell her I'm here. Tell her to bring hell." Grace nodded. "I will." She scrubbed the wall clean, memorizing the message. And then she left. 2 days later, it began. Clara's report exploded online. Governor Isaiah Freeman found in Redwater Prison. The video of his courtroom appearance, his last press conference, and Grace's sworn audio testimony leaked across every platform. Hashtags trended, crowds gathered, state senators called for answers. The state was forced to respond. A rescue team arrived, 3 troopers, 2 legal observers, 1 government liaison. They opened his cell. "Governor Freeman," the lead trooper said, "you're coming with us." Isaiah could barely stand. but his eyes burned. He stepped into the light. Hope surged. Then Vaughn appeared, smirking. He walked up to Isaiah, holding a plastic bag. "Found this in his bunk," Vaughn announced. "Cocaine, enough to charge him with trafficking." The room froze. The troopers exchanged glances. Isaiah's jaw clenched. He planted it. "You got proof?" Vaughn asked. The troopers were silent. "I had none of that before you got here," Isaiah said. "You all searched me. You logged my items." But one trooper picked up the baggie. "We can't ignore this." The liaison sighed. "He'll have to be held." Again, until we can verify. Isaiah's head tilted back, eyes closed. Dragged back from the edge of freedom, back into the legal pit, he didn't scream. Didn't beg, but inside something darkened. This wasn't survival anymore. This was war, and he would remember every name, every face. Every betrayal. Because one day soon, Isaiah Freeman was going to walk out, not just free, but dangerous. And this time, the system wouldn't be ready for him. The troopers never took Isaiah back to Redwater. Instead, they diverted. A safe house. Remote. A cabin deep in the pine woods, 20 miles north of anything. It was supposed to be a place to regroup, to let the noise die down, to shield him from a public relations disaster spiraling into something bigger. But safety was an illusion. Isaiah sat inside the cabin's dim main room, ribs still aching, the pain in his jaw dull and constant. The trooper stationed at the door, Reese, kept checking his watch. Clara Nunez had promised that more media heat was coming. Grace's testimony had shifted the tide. Something felt possible. Not just rescue, not just survival, maybe justice. Then came the sound. Not sirens, engines. Multiple. Too many. A rumble at first, then a roar. Pickup trucks, ATVs, tearing up the forest floor like predators on the scent. Reese peered out the window. "Governor, we've got trouble." Isaiah stood, heart hammering. "Is it Vaughn?" Reese didn't answer. He just drew his pistol. "Back door, go now." Outside, shadows flitted between the trees, camouflage jackets, rifles, torches. A Molotov cocktail arced through the night sky and exploded against the cabin's wall. Flames erupted. The crackle of fire joined the thundering engines. "Move!" Reese shouted. They burst through the back, but the woods were already alive. Men shouted. Gunfire popped from the trees. Isaiah ducked behind a log pile, gasping. That's when he saw the boy. Tyrell, 16, wiry frame, brown hoodie. He'd been the one fetching wood. Just outside when the assault began, now he was running toward the tree line, until Vaughn stepped out of the smoke. Shotgun raised. He grabbed Tyrell by the collar and yanked him close. "Stop or he dies!" he bellowed. Isaiah froze. Tyrell trembled in Vaughn's grip, eyes wide with terror. "Please." "Governor!" Vaughn snarled. "On your knees!" Isaiah stood slowly. Flames licked up the cabin. The militia tightened their circle, 12 men, maybe more. Armed and eager, Isaiah stepped forward, hands raised. "Let the boy go." Vaughn grinned. "You think you're still in control? This ends tonight." Tyrell whimpered. Vaughn shoved the barrel of the shotgun under his chin. Isaiah's voice dropped. "You kill that boy, and I promise this fire will be the last thing you ever see." Vaughn laughed. "Always so righteous." "You gonna pray us away?" Isaiah moved. Not away. Forward. Vaughn's finger twitched, but Isaiah was faster than grief. He lunged, grabbing the shotgun's barrel, twisting. The weapon fired into the sky. Tyrell dropped and rolled free. Vaughn and Isaiah wrestled, silhouetted in firelight. A militiaman raised his rifle, but hesitated. The two men crashed into the dirt. Isaiah's fist caught Vaughn's jaw. Vaughn elbowed him in the ribs. Blood sprayed. Sparks rained. The forest was burning. Vaughn snarled and reached for a knife. Isaiah slammed his knee into Vaughn's arm, then drove his elbow into his throat. Vaughn choked. Isaiah grabbed the shotgun stock and cracked it across Vaughn's head. Vaughn dropped. Breathing, but out. Gunshots erupted again, but not from the woods. Red and blue lights flashed through the trees. State police. "Drop your weapons!" Militiamen scattered. Some fired blindly. Officers returned fire. 2 militia went down. Others vanished into smoke. Isaiah stood panting over Vaughn's unconscious body. Tyrell clutched a trooper's leg, sobbing. Then it happened. A sharp crack. Sniper. Isaiah's shoulder exploded with pain. He dropped instantly, the world tilting. Blood soaked his side. He couldn't feel his legs. "Sniper! We've got a man down!" Troopers rushed to him. One dragged him behind a patrol truck. Another pressed a hand to the wound. "Stay with me, Governor." "Stay awake!" Isaiah tried to speak. Nothing came out. Everything blurred. Tyrell's face. Fire behind him. Vaughn is being hauled to his knees in cuffs. Red lights. Screaming sirens. A trooper's radio is crackling. Possible spinal hit. Isaiah blinked once. The forest spun. He'd won the fight. But the war wasn't done with him. Not yet. Isaiah awoke to the sterile beep of machines and the soft hum of filtered air. Fluorescent lights glared overhead, too bright, too still. The pain in his shoulder had dulled to a distant throb, but something deeper, a coldness below the waist, clung to him like a shadow. He tried to move his legs. Nothing. A nurse noticed his fluttering eyelids. She leaned over him, gently. "Governor Freeman, you're in Augusta General. You've been out for 2 days." "You were shot." He blinked slowly. "I can't feel my legs." She hesitated. "The bullet struck your spine." "You're paralyzed from the waist down." Isaiah closed his eyes again, not in shock, in calculation. Because even this would not be the end. Later that day, Grace came. She entered quietly, dressed in her janitor's uniform, holding a worn manila folder pressed to her chest like a relic. "I brought you something," she said. Isaiah looked up, his voice raw. "How bad's the damage?" She sat beside him. "On you or on them?" He smiled, barely. Grace placed the folder on the tray table and slid it toward him. "I found this months ago, cleaning out an old courthouse archive. Wasn't supposed to be there." "Wasn't supposed to survive." Isaiah opened it slowly. Inside, typewritten memos, financial ledgers, court transcripts, handwritten letters. One name repeated, Edward Vaughn. Darren's father, former police chief. Another name followed it often, Harland Cruz. "What is this?" Isaiah whispered. "A map," Grace said, "a blueprint of corruption. Goes back 30 years, falsified arrest records, bribes. Land seizures. They built an empire together. Cruz handed down sentences and Vaughn enforced them. They buried lives to build careers." Isaiah flipped through the documents. One memo included Vaughn Sr. requesting leniency from Cruz in exchange for campaign funds. Another detailed a cover-up involving the mysterious death of a black city councilman in 1999. This could tear them all down. Grace nodded. "I sent copies to Clara Nunez, to the DOJ. There's no hiding now." As if summoned, the hospital television above Isaiah's bed buzzed to life. Department of Justice confirms federal investigations into Judge Harland Cruz and several officials in Barron Parish. Leaked documents suggest a decades-long conspiracy to suppress black leadership in Georgia. Isaiah exhaled. Finally, the system was on fire. Over the next 48 hours, things moved fast. Federal agents raided Redwater. Harland Cruz was taken into custody. Vaughn's militia was disbanded. 2 state senators resigned. Clara Nunes released a documentary-style exposé titled The Freeman Files. It went viral within 12 hours. Isaiah's hospital room became a war room. Lawyers, journalists, investigators, they all came with offers, demands, promises. But then Reese entered, the trooper from the cabin. His face was pale. "He's gone," Reese said. Isaiah's voice dropped. "Who?" "Vaughn. Escaped from custody this morning. Killed 2 guards. Left a note." He handed Isaiah a printed scan. Isaiah read the words aloud. "The White Revolution begins now. This isn't over." "Not until he bleeds for real." The room went silent. Clara, standing in the doorway, whispered, "He's going underground. He'll have supporters." "That message isn't just a threat, it's a rallying cry." Isaiah nodded slowly. "Then we treat it like war." Grace reached for his hand. "You've already given so much." "Let them handle it now." He looked her in the eye. "If they could have handled it without me, they would have already. I may not stand again, but I can still lead. I will still speak. I will still fight." Outside the hospital window, the sun was rising, and Isaiah Freeman, broken, bloodied, paralyzed, was just getting started. The courthouse in Atlanta had never seen anything like it. Federal marshals flanked the building. Barricades wrapped the perimeter. Drones buzzed overhead. Snipers nested on rooftops. Inside, reporters packed every available space, murmuring, waiting. They weren't there for a trial. They were there for a reckoning. Isaiah Freeman was wheeled into the chamber by 2 agents. His suit was charcoal black, crisp, his hands folded neatly over his lap. The wheelchair was matte steel, functional but dignified. His face was calm, but his eyes held fire. Darren Vaughn was dragged in minutes later, shackled, disheveled, his beard unkempt, his eyes bloodshot. But the grin was still there, sharp, venomous. The courtroom buzzed. Judge Mallory presided. Federal. Black, sharp, no nonsense. This court convenes under emergency motion regarding the terrorism charges levied against one Darren Vaughn, she said, voice firm. This will not be a spectacle. This will be the order. Clara Nunes sat in the front row, recording. Grace was beside her, fingers tightly interlaced. Isaiah turned toward the gallery. "My name is Isaiah Freeman," he said. "I am the elected governor of the state of Georgia, and I am here today to tell the truth." Gasps rippled. The judge raised a brow. "You are not under oath, Mr. Freeman, and this is not your testimony window." Isaiah nodded. "Then call me as a witness." Mallory paused, and then, "Granted." They rolled him to the stand. What followed was not a trial. It was a purge. Isaiah spoke calmly, clearly. He told the story from the dirt road to the prison cell to the burning woods. He named names. He gave dates. He did not cry, did not falter. He told of Vaughn's abuses, the frame-up, the torture, the sniper's bullet. He described the system, not just the men, but the machine. The culture. The court was silent. Vaughn laughed once. All that talk from a cripple. Judge Mallory banged her gavel so hard the sound echoed like gunfire. "One more word, Mr. Vaughn, and you will be gagged." Isaiah turned his head. "You call me crippled. I led an army with no badge, no weapon, and no legs. I'm still here, and I'm not done," Vaughn snarled. The trial lasted 3 days. Evidence poured in. The dossier from Grace. The footage from Clara. Testimonies from Reese, from Tyrell, even from former militia members who turned state's witness. On the 3rd day, Vaughn was convicted on all counts: terrorism, attempted murder, conspiracy, incitement. As he was led away, he screamed, "This isn't over! You didn't kill it! You just slowed it down!" Isaiah didn't look at him. His eyes were on the ceiling, on the seal of the court. That night, Isaiah held a press conference from the Capitol steps. The chair wasn't a limitation, it was a throne. They tried to erase me, he said. But I endured, not for revenge, for resurrection. We are not here to beg for justice, we're here to build it. The crowd erupted. In the back, Clara wept silently, and Grace smiled. Isaiah Freeman had won more than a trial. He had taken back the narrative. He had survived the fire. And now, the state would burn with light. Isaiah's story isn't just about survival, it's a warning. That even the highest office doesn't shield you when the system sees your skin before your name. That truth can be buried under paperwork, batons, and fire, but it can still rise. Now the question is not whether Isaiah fought hard enough. It's whether we will. What will you do when you see injustice? When the next Isaiah is pulled from a truck, framed, gagged, and buried, will you speak? Will you stand or will you scroll past? This isn't just a story. It's a mirror, and it's only the beginning. This is Injustice Unmasked. If Isaiah's fight moved you, share it, speak it, challenge the silence. Because someone out there is still screaming into the dark, and they need to know they're not alone.